Latin America's economy is almost as big as China's. So I want to open up more trade. But by the way, if nations cheat and China has not played by the rules, they're going to have to be held accountable. We can't let them steal jobs. Training for people who need training. And by the way, we also need to have great schools for the coming generation. Look, our schools have fallen off from the very top and now into the bottom third or bottom quarter. It's unacceptable. It's time for us to make sure we put our kids and their parents and the teachers first, and the teachers unions we really got to do something to create jobs that may not be immediately connected in people's minds with jobs, and that relates to the federal budget and the deficit. You see, if you're an entrepreneur thinking about starting a business like the Marvin family did in the early 1900s, or if you're a big company thinking of expanding, you have to ask yourself, is America on the road to Greece? Are we on the road to economic crisis, as you're seeing in Europe and Italy and Spain and other parts of the world? If we keep on spending $1 trillion more than we take in, America's going to be, in fact, in that kind of circumstance down the road. And so we're going to have to make sure that people who would think about investing here are inclined to do so because we're able to deal with our great challenges fiscally. And so that means I'm going to do something that's been spoken about for years but hasn't been done, and that is I'm going to cut federal spending, I'm going to cap it, and finally get some traction. Champion small business. We have to help small businesses grow. We've got to make sure the regulators understand their job is not just to catch bad guys, but also to encourage the good guys. We need regulation, but they need to be up to date. And regulators have to see businesses like this as their friends and encourage them and support them. And by the way, we can't tax them to death. I was with a business person in St. Louis, 4 employees in the electronics business. He said that he and his son calculated how much money they sent to the government every year out of their business. And he put down how much for the federal income tax, and then the federal payroll tax, and then the state income tax, and then real estate tax, and then gasoline tax. And it was over half of what they made. And he said, think about this. You start a business, your chance of success is not even as good as 50-50. Most small businesses won't make it. So it's a risky thing to do. And then if you're successful, the government wants more than half what you make. And so a lot of people decide not to build businesses. Today, we're at the lowest level of new business startups in 30 years. So I want to change this dynamic and make business recognize they have a friend in Washington, not a foe. And I believe if we do that, we do those 5 things, and get those 5 done, we're going to create 12 million more jobs. Something about my record as governor in terms of reaching across the aisle. Recognize, to get those 5 things done and to get America strong again, we have to stop the dividing and the attacking and the demonizing. We've got to reach across the aisle, bring in good Democrats with good Republicans, and finally do the people's business and put the politics behind. Very different futures in mind. When people think about this election, when you talk to your friends about who they're going to vote for, and I want you to do that, and find at least one person who voted for Barack Obama and convince them to come vote for me instead, and for George Allen as well. And when you go through that, you can ask these questions and say, look, if the president's reelected, we're going to have $20 trillion in debt being the 4 years, and America's going to be closer to the economic crisis that you're seeing in Europe. If I'm elected, we're going to get America finally on track to a balanced budget. The president's reelected, you're going to cut Medicare by $716 billion to pay for Obamacare. If I'm reelected, excuse me, if I'm elected,
when I'm elected, I mean if I'm elected.
When I'm elected, comes to energy, because I know what he means by all of the above. He means all the energy that comes from above the ground, all right? Wind and solar. I like wind and solar too, but I also like the energy that comes from below the ground. Oil, coal, and gas. I can also tell you this, if the president were to be reelected, you're going to see high levels of unemployment continue and stalled wage growth, if any wage growth at all, just like we've seen over the last 4 years. We know something about the past. We've seen what his policies have produced. The only way to get this economy going is the kind of bold change I've described, real change from day one. With those 5 steps, that'll get this economy going, create jobs, rising take-home pay. We'll have a very different future when I get elected to your office. About the future. I'm optimistic. I think our future is going to be brighter than the past. I know we've had a glorious past as a nation. I know we're going through tough times right now. Sometimes we tend to think that what we're in is going to always be the way it'll be. But you know what? It's going to change. We need real change. For real change, we're going to have to take a different course. And I think that's what Americans are going to do on November 6th. And I believe that one of the things that will drive this country forward is the character and heart of the American people. That's where my confidence comes from. We're patient, hard-working, innovative, creative, risk-taking, business starting, education-seeking people. It's who we are. And I have throughout my life seen some of the great qualities of the human spirit in the American people that I've come to know. There's some stories I love to tell that describe something about the American heart. I was a leader in the Boy Scouts of America some years ago. Court of Honor is where we give out Eagle Scout awards and other awards to Boy Scouts. And I was at a table, a Formica table at the end of the gymnasium, at the end of the table, next to the American flag. And the person who was speaking at the microphone was the Scoutmaster from Monument, Colorado. And he said their scout troop wanted to have a special flag. So they bought an American flag, gold tassels around it. They set it off to be flown above the Capitol. Then when it came home, they said, hey, I wonder if we can have it go up on the space shuttle. So they contacted NASA. NASA agreed. He said, you can't imagine the pride of our boys, watching from their classrooms, seeing the space shuttle Challenger launch on the TV screen, and then they saw it explode on the TV. And he said he called NASA a couple of weeks later and said, have you found any remnant of our flag? And they hadn't. He said he called every week, month after month, still nothing. And then he was reading an article in the paper about some of the debris from the Challenger disaster, and it mentioned a flag. And so he called NASA, and they said, in fact, we have a presentation to make to your boys. NASA came out, presented them with a plastic container, and he said, we opened it up, and there was our flag in perfect condition.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, let's have the flagpole next to Mr. Romney here at the end of the table. And I reached over and grabbed the flag and pulled it out, and it was as if electricity was running through my arm. Because I thought of the people in our space program who've taken risks, put themselves in harm's way, for learning, for pioneering, for knowledge, for us, for their fellow citizens. Think of the men and women in our military, as the governor indicated, who serve our nation, put themselves